The agenda is police flock camera system. Chief Atterbury.
Thank you.
Oh,
Oh,
I forgot to tell him to turn it on. It's coming.
oh,
It's
okay.
got to warm up. huh?
He's starting that up.
Okay.
I will, I'll go ahead and start while that's warming up. What we're looking for is to acquire some flock cameras. We have some on trial right now. We wanted to see what the numbers look like, if they were going to be beneficial to us. They're currently used in neighborhoods by law enforcement, businesses, school districts, builders, contractors, all over the country. As a matter of fact, I was going south on K-15 last week, and I looked over at Boeing, and I saw some in their drive. I went out to a development out on Hoover Road next to a big lake, beautiful homes. They had some on the entryways into their neighborhood, and that's some that the homeowners associations have purchased. But we here in Bel Aire, as well as many of the departments, well, all of the departments listed in some of the documents that you got from us, are using them. And we're using them to solve crimes and make our community safer. So with that, I'll segue into the PowerPoint.
Yeah, point it back there a little bit.
Point it back here?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have law enforcement across the country. We work with limited resources, and crime is on the rise. You just have to listen to the news, look to see what's happening in other parts of the country, and you can see that crime is on the uptick, especially property crimes, because that's primarily what affects us here in Bel Aire. You probably know somebody who's had their car gotten into and stuff stolen from inside the vehicle. We were wanting to find something. I was wanting to find something, and then years ago, I saw flock, and I saw that as a good, viable option for us. And one of the things that we did is we let other people test it out for us. We have access to a lot of cameras through MOUs with other organizations around the county, and we've been able to use their cameras and the software that comes with the system to solve crimes that have happened here in Bel Aire. And I can give a lot of examples, but we're on limited time. It's a force multiplier. You can consider each one of those cameras as a 365 days a year, like a person standing there writing down a tag number, running that tag number, and then seeing if it's a stolen vehicle, if it's associated with an Amber Alert, whether it's a wanted person. And we just can't do that with a department our size. No department can do it with staffing that they've got. It works 24/7. It's objective evidence. That means it's just giving us the car and the tag. We have to use that objective evidence that then go further to find out what about that car is suspicious. We're told that it's a stolen vehicle, but we have to go check to make sure it's a stolen vehicle. If it's somebody with warrants, we have to investigate further because it doesn't tie into MVD, the motor vehicle department. We have to go run the tag separate from the hit and then get the information back and then check that person that's associated with the vehicle. So in communities where it's used, it's really accepted. People see the value in having that there for their safety. I'm gonna let you do it. So when you get the system, the way it does it is it takes a photo of the vehicle. It's only in a 75-degree span of view, and it's only getting the back of the vehicle. So it's getting the tag and the back photo of the vehicle. So it's not getting a face. There's no AI. There's no tracking of persons in the vehicle. It's just getting a picture of the vehicle. and it's indiscriminate. It gets every vehicle. There's no bias in play. It just gets every vehicle and then gives you a return. There's no traffic enforcement with the system. You don't use it to see if somebody's speeding or making a wrong turn, not using their signal. That's not what it's for. It's only for those things that we've talked about. Back up one. Go forward. Okay. You're doing that. Okay. So over on the right-hand side, you can see plate, make, color, last visited, and last seen. So we keep data for 30 days, and then it rolls off. It's not retrievable after that. And that is partly because the ACLU has had concerns about license plate readers in other parts of the country, different systems that are in play within law enforcement and other areas, that they've kept information for 60, 90, indefinitely. And that's not what we're in for. We're not wanting to track people. We want to be able to track vehicles involved in crime. So the shorter time span is agreeable to the ACLU, and that's why Flock went with it. Okay. It's some of this is repetitive because we want to drive home. It's not for use in tracking people per se. It's for tracking cars and tracking license plates. It's to gather objective evidence and facts about vehicles, not people, because the vehicles are the transport for criminals coming into our community, committing crimes, and then leaving our community. So we want to be able to track where they were, get that valuable lead that we can get, and then go find them and arrest them. It adheres to all it says state laws here, but state and federal laws having to do with the collection of that data, how it's stored, the location where it's stored, and the encryption that the company uses to keep it safe. And again, it's not facial recognition. It's not tied to personal identifiable information. Say it was connected to MVD, the place that holds your license plate information and your driver's license information, that would be a problem. But this is just independent observation, and then you take that lead and you go track down the information on your own. Again, it's not for traffic enforcement, and it's not cut for more than 30 days. Real-time alerts. I checked the latency in our system, and it was anywhere between 10 and 17 seconds that we get a return. So when somebody passes one of the cameras and it alerts because there's somebody wanted in the vehicle, or it's a stolen vehicle, stolen plate, it lets us know relatively quickly that that car has passed that camera, so we can move into the area and try to locate it. Clearance rates increase, crime decreases. Criminals know what cities and towns have these cameras, and they try to avoid them. Sometimes they avoid towns altogether because they're so useful. So it is a good deterrent. And with that last point, I'll add that in community policing, one of the primary tenets of community policing is displacement. So if we can make those criminals go to another place and do what they want to do, I'm all for it. Yeah. The information is never shared or sold. Again, the 30-day retention. Those things that are not associated with crimes, they're deleted. But if we have something that we want to use as evidence in a crime, we can download that and put it in the case file and retain that for prosecution. And again, it takes the human bias out of running tags. It runs every tag. So we can't be accused of bias. We're just taking what the machine gives us because it's running every tag and then comparing it with those wanted people, wanted tags, stolen vehicles, etc. Highly encrypted. There's an audit trail, so we can track if we do an independent search, that's tracked, so that we can ensure that we don't have problems. not facial recognition, not predictive policing, no personal identifying information, not used for traffic control, not connected to registration or driver's license information. And there's a transparency portal. And if you've gone to our, I know Mr. Dean's seen it. Thank you for the comment. Yeah. So we have a transparency portal. So it's just very open with our community. What's detected, what's not detected. We have an acceptable use policy, okay, on what the officers can do with the information, what they can't do with the information, prohibited uses, how it's accessed, hot list policy, the data retention, how many cameras we have, our external partners. Right now we have 27 who've got access to the 5 cameras we have, and they use that to see if they have criminals that have passed through our town, because maybe they can track down where they are. And so in the last 30 days, I'm going to deviate from this just a little bit. We've had 296,000 vehicles go by our cameras. And you would be surprised how much traffic goes up Rock Road right now during the Woodlawn project. It accounts for 37% of that. One of the things that it does is it will give us a count of the vehicles that are going down that stretch of road. So not just for getting tags, but we can also see the usage of that road and how it impacts what you have to do as far as getting roads repaired, and for us, where we might want to add some personnel to attend to the higher traffic, because with that comes violations. But from that, we've had 21 hits, and that's for warrants, people on supervised release, violent persons, stolen vehicles. As a matter of fact, it was Wednesday of last week, we got a hit from the Woodlawn or the Rock Road camera, and the person came down here to Central Park, and we stopped them in the parking lot here. And so we cleared a stolen vehicle. And I talked about the transparency portal. Here's just a few of the agencies who use Flock and are using it to make their community safer. You'll see many of them here in Sedgwick County and the surrounding area. This is part of a Wichita project, and you can see that they recovered over right about $1.9 million in vehicle recoveries, tags, guns, drugs. We actually loaned an officer part-time to them to work on that task force. They worked with the AG's office, Sedgwick County Sheriff, Hayesville, Valley Center. It was a cooperative working together to solve those crimes. And this is just this is a guy who stole a vehicle with kids inside, and it was recovered with the use of Flock. Kids were safe. Here's a smash and grab. This is actually in San Bruno. Hello. And there are just dozens and dozens, hundreds of cases of successes where the Flock cameras have been used to solve crimes. Now they come in different configurations. Right now we have them on a pole, the third one from the left, and that's what's here in our community. When Woodlawn is finished, I'd like to, have something coming into our city from Wichita so we can see what's coming through and maybe keep people out of our community, or let them know we're paying attention. So one of the things that I haven't touched on is the price. Okay, they're $2,500 a piece for each camera. It's as a service. So wherever there is a camera, that's $2,500, but that's 365 days worth of coverage, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. And an officer is $85,000 wages and benefits roughly. And I'm not suggesting we get rid of officers so we can have cameras. Beat you to the punch. I'm just saying that this is a way to, as a force multiplier, give us better coverage throughout our city and help keep our community safe. Questions?
How many cameras are you talking about?
Right now we have 5. I would love to keep the 5.
Maybe you want.
I want about 15. and I'm being honest about that. But I'm also, this is something new for us. If I had to narrow it down, I've got to see where these numbers are going to take us as far as what the most useful place for the cameras are. Because with the Woodlawn project, we have traffic that's been diverted from normal traffic flows. So it's not giving me, it's giving me true information. It's just not giving me the best information to make good decisions from, because traffic's been diverted. Right now we have them at 61st or at 254 in Rock southbound, 45th and Rock northbound, Woodlawn and 53rd southbound, and then 53rd and Oliver eastbound, and then at 45th and Oliver eastbound.
Ms. Hamburg?
And what that does is it gets people coming into our community. Yes.
So last fall in Keachai, I know they had the situation with that lieutenant that was stalking his ex by using the flock camera.
Yes.
What broke down there? What would be our protocol? Or is that just bad integrity that slips through your hiring sometimes?
Well, that was bad integrity, and we know that because he was convicted.
We know that, yeah.
Yeah. We have prohibited uses. The other thing that we have in place currently is our policy on the use of the cameras and what they can be used for and what they can't be used for, and what we do with the data that we keep, and what somebody has to have if they call us and they want to have access, and many, many other things. But we've this is a best practice that Flock suggests, and that's what we've done.
So all officers on this police force would have access. There wouldn't be a flock person that would be going through.
No.
Okay.
There's also an audit process that we can use to see who's doing what, and I looked at that today. We can have custom searches. Say we have a known burglar that's hitting all of Sedgwick County, and we have one. We had one contact an officer last night, somebody we know well. But we can set that up so that his tag, he's a thief, he's a burglar, he comes in our city, it tells us, go out and start looking for him because he's going to be stealing from our constituents.
And that was my next question is this, I know you said it wasn't with the DMV and the tag office, but is it running against national databases?
Yes,
And then you can also put like local hits on for somebody you're looking for?
yes.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. David?
Example, probably up here, Derby had a flock hit on a subject that was wanted on Bel Aire warrants. They located the vehicle and arrested that subject just about 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's always in use. It's always giving us updated information as soon as that tag passes that camera and gives us the opportunity to make that arrest, make the arrest in the parking lot. Well, deal with that situation that was in our parking lot. That was actually 2 exes. He was supposed to be buying the car from her. When he didn't make a payment, she reported it stolen. But it was a stolen, she had it reported as a stolen vehicle. It was in the system, and we were able to get the car back and deal with that situation.
Mr. David?
So just one more time, it goes to Flock, goes through their databases, and then the data comes back to you, to your police staff. It doesn't go anywhere else.
Mm-mm.
The FBI or no other agency can't retrieve that data unless you give it to them.
Unless they sign an MOU or we authorize that. I almost misspoke. They don't have to have an MOU. As long as they have access to the system within Flock, they can contact us and we can grant them access.
Okay. And then I'm confused.
But it's not used for immigration or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's a line in the in the brochure here that says that it's can go back in time. But then right above that, it says it only maintains footage for 30 days. So you can only go back in time for 30 days.
That's it. And
Okay.
then once that 31 days gets there, it's already been erased.
Thank you.
Is this data subject to open records?
No. If we keep it, there was legislation last year that said if anybody wanted access, they have to come through us, but it's protected information because it's just intel as far as if we're trying to solve a crime. Those things that we have stored in our files as part of criminal investigations, also not accessible through an Open Records Act request. That would have to be through a subpoena and through the courts. So everything would have to be authorized by a judge.
Chief, thanks for looking into the use of technology to kind of aid your force. I think it's a good idea. One thing I did want to say is I did share it on my council Facebook page. And the reason why I did is I felt a little uncomfortable because I didn't feel like the public knew about it during the test unless they saw and then they started asking questions. So I actually felt it was pretty necessary to share that out because that was
I appreciate that.
important information for the public to know that we were looking at testing a new device to aid our police force in keeping us protected. But also over the weekend, I drove through Greenwich Place at K96. And because I've seen one, now I'm seeing them everywhere.
Yeah.
So I drove right through the entrance and saw one of them. So certainly, as you said, shopping centers are using them, HOAs are using them. One question I did have was how did you decide where to put them? I think you answered it. You said you wanted to cover everything coming into our community.
Mhm.
And then Mr. David asked the same question about the FBI and CIA and where the data is going. So it sounds like other agencies will have access to this for the purpose of if they need this data to help solve a crime. That's the purpose of it.
That is it.
Only if you allow
Pardon?
it. Only
If we authorize it.
authorize.
Yeah, they have to send us an information
Right.
request or a request, and we evaluate. You know, if somebody sends me information from Kentucky, and we've gotten them from all over the country, we just put that to the side. And what do they need our information for? If they need it that bad, they're going to call us and explain, send us a teletype, and then we'll evaluate that. But we don't want people just maybe trying to find their ex in Kansas, you know, stuff like that. We want to make sure that it's a good law enforcement purpose.
Sure. Yeah, you're protecting the data. It has to be there has to be a need to go find what's in it. It's a tool you're using. So I appreciate it. I just wanted to make those couple comments and appreciate you looking into something to aid I know you guys are short staffed and this does seem like something worth considering to help aid as we grow.
Tonight also, and I was a little remiss, we have Hector Solomon Valdez. He's an employee of Flock. He's on Zoom right now. I don't know if is he.
Good evening.
Hey,
I'm
Hector,
not sure if
have
you
I
all can
left
hear me.
anything out?
No, I think you did a great job. To the council, if you have any other questions, I'm happy to dig in deeper with you all right now. I'm in the middle of traveling, so if you hear a little bit of noise, my apologies.
He's actually at a Flock conference. So in Atlanta. Nice place, Atlanta.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith.
I'll just share my thoughts on this. I appreciate you looking into this, and I think the technology is really cool. And I understand the appeal of it. I think it is probably very useful. I'm probably more philosophically concerned than anything else, just with the, like the constant collection of data and surveillance of folks does give me pause. I had the privilege of traveling to China for pleasure at the end of 2019 and early 2020. And as I walked around Beijing, it stood out to me how you'd walk along the sidewalk and not occasionally, but every single light pole had not one camera, but an array of cameras on them watching you all the time. And what particularly stood out to me is one busy intersection that we walked through. You'd walk up to the intersection and there was a little police hut there, where a substation, and a giant billboard sized TV. And on that billboard was a picture of the intersection, and you could see the people in the intersection, and you could see somebody jaywalking, and you could see somebody running the red light, and a couple of other small infractions, and they were all circled on the screen, and they zoomed in on the face, and then they did a dotted line to a snapshot of their state ID card. And like that technology impressed me, but it created a really interesting environment while visiting Beijing. And that's not what this is. I appreciate all the things that you talked about in terms of its limitations and how it's controlled, but it does, in my mind, like take the tiniest of steps in that direction. And I think we're kind of constantly going to be faced with the challenge of trading off privacy for security and protection. And it's hard for me to know like what's the right balance there. And so I'm not completely comfortable with this at this point. But I do appreciate how it's helping us, right now.
Appreciate that. I after our conversation with Phil, I went and looked up to see what he was speaking about, and I saw some videos on YouTube that described exactly what you just described for us today, and how they would track people and find other people and then try to make connections, and then they keep that in their database. And then if this person commits a crime, they come looking for you.
And cameras and compute are going to continue to get cheaper. We could put a camera on every street and at every sidewalk in every corner, and we could have AI do facial recognition to detect people. Like that technology is there, and it's actually reasonably priced. It's not that expensive. And so you could take the automation of policing to extremes without really a lot of effort, in my opinion. And I don't know that that's a good thing.
And I would agree with you that China is an extreme beyond extreme. We're not asking for that.
And if I may, council member, we also agree. I think those are really great points. And that's why in the chief's presentation, you notice a couple of things, which is that there is no personal identifiable information within Flock. That is by design. Also, if you remember the footage that was shown by the chief as well, we've actually trained our machine learning to identify vehicles by the rear of the vehicle for two reasons. One, every single state requires a rear plate, but also that reduces the amount that we're actually taking pictures of people at all. And so really important to mention that no way to tie two individuals. This is an investigative lead that your department then still has to do good, solid police work within the framework of our laws here in the United States to use. And then I think the chief also did show on our an ethics slide, all of the servers are also completely within the United States. They're AWS government cloud. That's something that's also really important to just kind of mention how secure this data is, even if there's no personal identifiable information.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor?
I can help with?
I had two more questions, and I'll probably make a comment. So first of all, I know this is a relatively new company, like 5 or 6 years. And I know there have been court cases where it like violates your Fourth Amendment rights, or you're under your Fourth Amendment rights protection when police have like stuck a tracking device on a vehicle. As these become more ubiquitous, I know you don't have a crystal ball, and I don't think there have been any cases yet where you're essentially, could you see these being challenged as they become more ubiquitous and you're not tracking them in real time, but if they check in at 96 and Oliver and then they check in, do you foresee these becoming a Fourth Amendment issue?
But that's exactly what we do with criminals.
Mhm.
There was a kidnapping, and a homicide in Wichita, and they tracked that vehicle from a location on the cameras that they had access to an area, and then flooded the area. In both those situations, and were able to make an apprehension. So it's how it's used,
Mhm.
okay, and how it's put to use by the organization. I don't care where you go. I like you, but I don't care where you go.
Right.
Okay. But I do care where some of the people who come into our community go when they're in our community. And if I'm tracking them because they're like the guy I was talking about, they're a criminal and they're here to do criminal acts, the courts are okay with that. And I would defer to Hector. I don't think it's been challenged in that way. I think the big challenge has been with the storage of some of the tags and the length of that. And I think that they pretty much dropped their concern because it's such a short amount of time. Hector?
There actually have been some challenges when it comes to Fourth Amendment, but it has been found, and defer obviously to your legal counsel. There is no expectation of privacy when it comes to your license plate and your vehicle in the public right of way. So this is in plain sight, not in your private, residence, et cetera. And so that is why it's also important. The cameras are only facing into the street where vehicles are transiting, within the public right of way. So that has been decided by the courts already within the United States.
That's a better answer than mine.
I did a ride along in 2007 with the Sedgwick County officer, and when we were at a stoplight, he's like, I'm proactive. I'm keying in tag numbers because there might be somebody sitting around here with a warrant or whatever. But that was 16 years ago. Has technology changed at all to help you guys with that process? Like, do your dash cameras automatically read any tag numbers around you at this point?
Not ours, not the ones we have right now, but the system, the Axon system that we have right now is capable of being upgraded to do exactly that.
Okay.
And that's just a couple of years old. And yes, it can do that, but we don't have
But
those
we don't
cameras.
do that. I was really torn on this because I do have my philosophical misgivings about it, but then I live here and I want my property back or my kid back if, they're stolen or abducted. But if everybody that came through here, I want the force multiplied for people with high integrity. I just have this idea that, you should always make the rules and the tools so that even if they fell into your worst enemy's hands, it wouldn't be that bad. And this concerns me a little bit. And one last question I had was, it says it only reads tags,
Mhm.
but it captures the image of like people's religious or political stickers, or how does that play into it?
It does not. So it only reads vehicle features, what we call the vehicle fingerprint. So there are about 45 filters. It's going to be back rack, bike rack, top rack, etc. Bumper sticker, generally not any specific writing, etc. And to your point, council member, we agree as well. That's why, in the case that you brought up, it's actually a good example of how it's solid policy, which I know your chief has shared with you, plus technology that is built ethically. So in the case that you saw in Kansas, there was some misuse. There are repercussions for that person, but it's also because the policy, Wichita's policy, requires them to be constantly auditing, their searches, which the chief can easily do, or his designees. And then there's repercussions, obviously, right? So there's a way to tie that to that individual. And in that specific instance, the technology helped make sure that he no longer has access to this and is going through the judicial process for misusing this information. It is worthy to note also that currently your law enforcement department has access to other what is called CJIS data that is personal information more than they would within Flock.
Okay. All right. Thank you. As of right now, I see a lot of the benefits, and I appreciate the safeguards put around it. I'm still a little uncomfortable as of right now. Thank you.
So I haven't said anything yet, but I'm uncomfortable with this as well. And it's not that I don't trust you or the police force. I just know that this type of technology gets in the wrong hands, it can really be badly abused. It's not an exact correlation, but the Nazis made everybody register their guns. And their reason was it's a laudable purpose because we may be in a war and we need to know who has guns. The next thing you knew, they took all those guns away from people. That was just a wrong abuse of that type of thing. Now, they weren't, they were a socialist country. They weren't a democracy. They were a pseudo democracy, but they were not a real democracy. So I don't think you would do that. I don't believe that would be the case. But uh, this technology get in the wrong hands, it can be badly abused, and that's the thing I'm concerned about. This is surveillance. It isn't taking a probable cause and pursuing a probable cause. It's surveillance, and you get some hits, and now you have some probable cause. Now you're going after those issues. I get that, and that's very laudable in that respect. So I like that aspect of it because I like that additional safety, but I'm very concerned about that. When I was in high school, we had to read 1984. I don't know how many people have read that book, but that's what totalitarian governments end up doing. They start with what looks like a good thing, and next thing you know, they've turned it into something very bad. And I don't want to see us do that. So I'm equally as concerned about that issue because I just don't see us. I don't see how we can protect ourselves from that. Maybe there's no protection to it. Maybe with the way the technology is advancing, and we're going to end up with that anyway. I don't know, but that's just where I'm cautious about this. So
Okay. And, we stood back and watched as other organizations acquired these. There's one instance, there are 800,000 officers in the U.S. Please don't let that one steer your decision. Those are really good odds. One out of 800,000. And I'm not saying it hasn't been misused by more than that, but that's the one I know about. If you have concerns, there's always an opportunity for you to ask for a report on an audit. Not that you get to see all the information that we would get to see because that's CJIS information, that's protected information, but I can direct you to the transparency portal that lets you see how many vehicles we've checked and how many hits we've gotten and the things that are important to us. And you can require me to come to you if I have a violation of our policy, and you can make a determination as to whether it can continue. But I see this as an absolutely useful force multiplying tool for our community, even with your misgivings about how it might be used if it were compromised. We see it frequently where databases are compromised. We've got cities who have had their servers hijacked. This company uses the highest level of security to maintain the data. I have very low concern over it getting out. But if you would like to put some safeguards in place that you can think of, like periodic audits, and require me to report through my monthly report, I would be more than happy to do that.
I'm very concerned about the data, and nothing has relieved that concern for me tonight, because right now we're totally trusting Flock to delete the data. We're totally trusting them not to map it to something else, because I've seen how easily you can map a driver's license tag to people. You can go on car sales sites and they ask for your tag number and they give you back everything about it. All your registration, everything, how much it's worth. Takes no time at all. So there's no reason Flock can't be doing that. We just have to trust that they're not. And no matter how secure the system is, somebody's going to break into it if they can think of a good use for the data.
Okay, and that's
Happy to
probably my
jump in.
cue to say you're all carrying one of these. Okay, and this gives you thousands of more points of data than Flock would ever give, and it's about you personally. It's not about your license plate. And the fact that I think everybody in here has one of these that's probably listening to us right now. And if I say a word, you'll get ads about it in about 15 minutes. This concerns me more than that concerns me.
Well, it
And
concerns me
Chief,
too.
if I may jump in to the council members' questions, I do want to just state on our contract, it is in there that we do not have any access. It's not just our word; it is our contract to your, to your city. we do not have access. We do not sell or share that data. That data is only shareable by your police department. So something important to note. And again, we also don't have access to any personal identifiable information to do anything with that information. And then the other really important thing to note is that time to live, right? So the data is deleted at 30 days. There is a timestamp every single time an image is taken. It is hard deleted at that 30-day mark. And so that is really important when it comes to privacy, because there's no long-term retention of any patterns, et cetera.
And like I said, that's all trust. You have a contract, but you can break the contract. One of your employees could break the contract without you knowing about it. Somebody can hack into your system and go around your contract.
We can definitely share with your IT team, all of our credentials as far as IT security. We are a SOC 2 compliant company. And again, folks at Flock do not have access to the images.
And
that
all the
you have.
data is on Amazon someplace.
And
No, it's not.
and more importantly, again,
I
there's
believe that's
no,
where he said it
as
was.
the chief showed, the data that is being captured for your department is the back of vehicles with the license plate. There's no way to know or see who is in that vehicle. Your police department themselves is an investigative lead. They still have to find out who is exactly in that vehicle by either making a stop or other investigative tools. So there's no personal identifiable information that can be found through any type of hack, et cetera.
And who are you using for cloud service?
Amazon Web Servers, and all of those servers are located
I was
solely
thinking
within
about
the
this
United
getting on
States.
and looking.
So,
I thought you were
you know,
exaggerating.
Amazon's never been hacked, I know.
Justin, do you know what AES 256 encryption is? And
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. And, as far as the technology goes, if you're going to implement this, I think, what you guys have laid out is probably, maybe the best that we could expect from an implementation. I'm not challenging that the models are good, that the policies are good. My concern is purely philosophical, and that I just don't think it's the right thing for us to do. I'm not challenging the specific technology or the policies or the people side of it. My concern is purely policy based and philosophical.
That's my main concern too. And I'll acknowledge that you've had great success or some success. I don't know if it's great or not. And it's saved you some legwork, but I'm really worried about the data.
well, it hasn't saved us legwork. It's given us legwork, because without this, we wouldn't have the leads to solve the crimes that are happening to your neighbors who want those crimes solved. Without this, we won't have to be able to use that legwork to go get those criminals. So we're not worried about saving legwork. We would like more legwork.
Chief.
Yes, sir.
I would just have you kind of expand or ask you a question about the use of private security cameras, or even the cameras that we have that are at the rec currently or at City Hall, or if you're following up on a lead, if somebody has a Ring doorbell camera. Kind of expand on how you use tools now that aren't Flock, that even give you more information than Flock could ever give you
Oh, sure.
in a public right of way.
Yeah, if anything happens here at the city building, we'll go back and look at the footage that we have and get faces and clothing. And we'll do that today and tomorrow. Same over at the rec center. We're working a case over there now that valuable information from a video that on a felony crime. So the Ring doorbell cameras and the Ring security cameras, or whatever company has that security camera or made it, whether it happens here or any other city USA, one of the first things a police officer does is get out and look to see who's got cameras, and they go to that person to see if they can get that viable lead to help solve that crime. And it gives you much more personal information: faces, clothing, vehicles, side views, who other people are in the vehicles, than what Flock gives you. And that's available to us. But those are private cameras, a lot of them. But here and at the rec center and all over City Hall, downtown in Wichita and a lot of places throughout the country. If you're going to go to the mall, you're on camera. If you go to Target, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, name your store, you're on camera. And it's much more information than what you're getting here, because like in those drugstores and so on, they're seeing everything you pick up and put in your cart. Okay, so let's not fool ourselves with this is the flocks, the mean evil creature. You're still going to those stores and collecting things and putting them in your cart, and somebody's watching you, and they don't have the safeguards in place that this company does. That employee can download that and put it on YouTube.
I think you bring up great points. I mean, there's no doubt we're all being tracked. Our phones track us. That's a choice that we make when we use our phones. When we go to the grocery store, they're tracking what we look at, where you walk. I mean, there's AI in those cameras, and they're monitoring customer behavior. I think the difference for me here is that this is the government doing the tracking, the government with their guns doing the tracking, and that's the deal breaker for me.
Should we move on? I'm disappointed. I will tell you, this is a great tool for our community, and for fear, not doing it is going to mean that crimes on your neighbors and your voters are not going to be solved. But we tried. Okay. Mr. Mayor, next.
I appreciate your bringing this in to us and letting us review it. You did do a great job with the information, so I
We could
appreciate
do a better
that.
job.
I'm sorry?
We could do a better job.
Well, yeah, the next item is, item B is retention, Kansas Police and Fire. And so I think you have some things to talk about, KPERS versus this.
Thank you all. Have a
KPNF.
good evening.
Hector, thank you very much for dropping in. Go have a good time.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Okay, KPERS versus KPNF. Right now, all of our employees are with the police department are KPERS employees, and we're desiring to move to KPNF. That's Kansas Police and Fire. Some of the reasons that we would like to do that is because our employees versus some other employees, office staff, and so on, are not exposed to some of the things that we're exposed to. We sometimes have to drive fast. We can be injured in car wrecks. We run into people that they're bleeding and they have bloodborne pathogens, and we can be infected with things that we really don't want. Other physical injuries. I mean, I've sprained both my ankles, dislocated shoulders. I've got plates in my neck. Stuff happens when you're out doing the job. And what we're trying to do is recruit people and retain people, even within this dangerous environment, that we can maintain for a long period of time. So as far as that recruitment goes, and I'm going to step back for a little bit here, but I've got Lieutenant Fox here, and he can tell you what he's experienced with trying to recruit some new employees to our police department. I'm going to hang in.
I welcome you to stand here. So what we've experienced just this year, since January 1, we've had 20 to even 30 potential candidates come through our door or contact us in reference to coming to work for Bel Aire. Everything's great up until the question is asked, what retirement system do you guys offer? The minute KPERS comes out of my mouth, they say, well, I can go down the street and make a couple of dollars less, but have a better retirement. So at the end of the day, what that does for us is it takes away potential good candidates. And when I say good candidates, I'm not just talking about certified. I'm talking about uncertified law enforcement officers who either have or have not attended the state academy. We like to hire preferably certified officers. So these are officers that are looking to move to a more progressive, state-of-the-art department, a good city, good county, whatever it is to work for, that is KPNF. You guys have done a tremendous job with getting us our pay scale. This is the next step in the battle. I think you guys had in your packet the number of cities just surrounding Bel Aire, not including Wichita or the sheriff's office, who has KPNF. We're one of 6 that doesn't. Keachai's got it. Park City's got it. Valley Center's got it. Their pay is comparable to ours. People go there. Candidates go to those cities because we're KPERS and not KPNF. So we can get people come knocking on our door, making the phone calls. The minute we tell them we're KPERS, they say, let us know when you're KPNF and we'll come back and talk to you.
We also have an issue because over the last few years, we've hired some people from other agencies that they came from KPNF organizations. They're looking to their future and they're mulling over right now whether they should leave our employment and go back to a KPERS organization. So that retention is jeopardized by not having this retirement system in place. We really want to keep them. We go through a lot to hire our employees, and we try to do a good job of vetting them to see if they're going to be a good fit for our community. And right now, they're looking down the way, years down the road, to try to make the best they can for themselves and their families, and that's in their retirement. So they're trying to get the best opportunity they have to have a good retirement. So right now, we also have Alec here. He's from the retirement systems here in the state of Kansas. If you have a technical question, any of you, please just spout it out. I'm going to point over at Alec so that he can help us through this.
He's also prepared a brief presentation for you guys.
Would you like to see that maybe first? Yeah.
Yeah,
Alec,
yeah, please.
come on up. And we'll see if you can get this to work better than I got it to work for me.
No, I don't think I probably won't hit on every single slide because a lot of this you kind of hit on in your intro, but my name's Alec Hawley. I work with KPERS, kind of headquartered in Topeka. I'm in the training and education, so I train new KPERS hires, and then I get invited to do presentations on KPNF or KPERS, any kind of related topic. I thought what I'd do is just put a few slides. I'll probably skip through a few. I want to be mindful of all of your time. I think the point of my presentation is really to kind of highlight the differences, why maybe a KPNF prospective person you're interviewing might be, attracted to KPNF versus KPERS. But that said, I'm also not swaying you one way or the other. I'm a KPERS member myself, so I'm not kind of coming at it from that angle, if you will. KPNF, oops, there we go. As far as what the membership's very similar to KPERS. The position would have to require 1,000 hours per year, covered by Social Security, continuously, consistently employed. So just like KPERS, police and fire has membership requirements. If an agency affiliates with police and fire, anyone who meets these requirements would have to be in the police and fire program, just like they have to be in KPERS right now. So it's a mandatory plan. For the police and fire would have to meet the definition of a policeman. His principal duties are in the engagement and enforcement of law, successfully completed the course of instruction for law enforcement.
Ask you a question real
Yeah,
quick.
sure
You
thing.
said they have to be policemen. Does that count people that work in the police department, like the person that works the front desk or answers the phones, or?
No, they would have to meet that definition where their principal job duties are in the enforcement of law and maintenance and have successfully completed that required training.
So for our sake, we're basically talking the guys in uniform,
Right, exactly. Yep.
although I guess they could wear a uniform, sit at the desk.
So what he's trying to say, if I can interrupt real
Yeah,
quick,
sure.
is every law enforcement officer in the state of Kansas has to attend 540-hour training academy at the state academy in Hutchinson. in order to become a full-time certified law enforcement officer in the state of Kansas, if someone doesn't go to that and attend it and graduate from it, they're not considered a full-time law enforcement officer. So your records personnel, your front desk personnel, your receptionists, your administrative assistants, they don't go to a police academy. So they don't qualify for Kansas Police and Fire, just the same as any other city employee within the city outside of the police department. They don't attend the police academy. So if that clarifies that.
Yes, it does. Thank you. So we're talking basic, what, 12 people now we've got on the force? 13.
A lot of the discussion around the difference at kind of the employer level or the agency level has to do with contributions. The employees, the KPNF members themselves contribute a little bit more. Right now, they contribute 6%. If you affiliate with KPNF, members would contribute 7.15% of their pay. Employers contribute as well. So the city of Bel Aire contributes on behalf of KPERS employees right now. They pay that employer rate, does not go into members' accounts. This goes to that KPERS trust fund. The trust fund the trust fund funds future retirement benefits and death benefits as well. KPNF, the employer contribution, of course, is higher. So that's kind of the big difference. The agencies contribute more, but the reason what those higher employer contributions go toward are really better member benefits. And there's really three I'm going to hit on. And again, I'm going to be mindful of everyone's time, so I don't want to go over or anything, but a new perspective, a prospect you're looking at is going to maybe the reason they're asking about the benefits are around these three topics, which are kind of disability, death benefits, and then of course retirement benefits. So disability benefits, it's just a much more kind of robust benefit. If a person is hurt or sick on the job, which we know is much more common, it's a dangerous job. There's no other way to explain it. There is a really nice disability benefit. It's defined as occupational. The employer reports the disability to us right away. Once we receive all the paperwork, it can take more like 4 to 8 weeks to process, as opposed to KPERS disability, which is a long-term disability benefit where you have to wait 180 days. And once you're approved, if you're approved, your benefit would start after kind of this 6-month period. That's not the case for police and fire disability. There is, does require proof of continuing disability. No disability coverage is provided if the disability arises from employment other than with the participating employer. Death benefits is the other kind of leg of the stool, if you will, that is a lot more beneficial compared to KPERS. There's service-connected death benefits, where a surviving spouse can receive a lifetime benefit paid monthly. It's based on the hire of the member's final average salary, which is their highest years averaged out. Kind of what the member would have been paid had he or she selected 100% joint survivor. So essentially, if there's something terrible happens and it's related to the job, a member's spouse or eligible children will get this monthly lifetime benefit. Whereas KPERS just offers what we refer to as a basic life insurance policy, which is just 150% of your salary. So maybe like a KPERS member might get a kind of a one-time lump sum payment. KPNF offers these service-connected death benefits, which gives an ongoing monthly, kind of almost like the spouse would essentially retire off of the member's account.
Is this like a life insurance policy where there's a premium that's paid, and if an event like that happens, then the policy takes care of those distributions, or is this a technical liability for the city based on the actual occurrences that happen?
Yeah, so the city that employer rate, which is significantly higher than the KPERS rate. These benefits are kind of built into that higher rate. So I think just to give you the numbers, right now, the KPNF employer rate is something like 22.9%. That's what the employer would pay to the system. Right now, you're paying about 9% on behalf of KPERS, because KPERS offers death benefits as well. So this higher rate covers death and disability, and we'll talk about the retirement as well. But that's it. Those high costs include all of these benefits. So again, if something happened in the line of duty, a member's spouse would get this lifetime benefit, which, could be a very significant amount.
So there's no third party insurance involved here. This is the KPF is a fund, a state fund that pays out the benefits from that fund.
That's right.
All right.
Yep.
Okay.
So, and that's how KPERS has one big trust fund. You probably see it in the news a lot. It's this $25 billion fund that is made up of employer contributions, KPERS and KPNF, and then investments. They have an investments division that invests all this money, and then the employees. So we all contribute as well, the 6% that comes out of KPERS members' paycheck. I'm going to the death benefits again. Very good. It's kind of broken down between service connected, non-service connected. I'd need probably about an hour alone to go over all of the death benefits. I do want to touch on retirement. Retirement seems to be, when I deal with members in the field, seems to be the biggest draw for why someone would be attracted to police and fire versus KPERS. And it just, the way eligibility works. So KPERS has 3 tiers. There's KPERS 1, 2, and 3. I'm a KPERS 3. I started, I actually was a KPERS 2. I withdrew my funds, but came back after 2015 when KPERS 3 came about. And KPNF has really just this tier 2. KPERS 3, just to give you an idea, retirement eligibility for a KPERS 3 member is age 60 with 30 years of service or 65 with 5 years. For a KPNF tier 2 member, retirement is age 50 with 25 years, 55 with 20, or 60 with 15. So just due to the nature of the very tough job, that's going to be attractive to someone versus a new KPERS 3 member who is looking at age 60 with 30 years of service. So KPNF members can retire sooner. And then the retirement, there's also early retirement for KPNF members, which is age 50 with 20 years. KPERS offers early retirement as well. The reduction factors for KPNF is actually not nearly as significant as something like KPERS 2 or 3, where even though you hear early retirement, I'm getting a reduction, and that's seen, you're not getting as much. However, if you have a police member who's 50 with 20 and maybe they're moving out of state, this is attractive to them because they can take a 24% reduction from their maximum benefit. And then, believe it or not, that's, if you're retiring at 50 and getting a lifetime benefit, even though that 24% reduction seems significant, it's, if you live to 100, you're getting 50 years worth of this reduced benefit, which obviously adds up. So it just has much better retirement benefits compared to KPERS. We were talking about KPERS 3. Is it anyone in here by any chance familiar with KPERS 3 or read up on that, or kind of? It came about in 2015, and you're all familiar with kind of traditional pension plans like KPERS, just that knowing that, hey, if I retire from KPERS, I'm going to get a lifetime benefit. KPERS 3 offers a lifetime benefit, but it's calculated a little bit different. It's calculated more like an annuity. And what I mean by that is, my account balance is going to determine what my monthly benefit is. So it came about really just for kind of the sustainability of the system. You got to probably work longer, build that balance. Traditional KPERS, like KPERS 1 members, your retirement's based on your highest salary years, your years of service, and then this multiplier that the legislature sets. And so KPNF has a higher retirement multiplier. And kind of what I'm getting at is for someone who is coming on board as maybe you've got a young prospective policeman you're looking to hire, KPERS 3 could be seen as, just not a traditional pension, if you will. It's more of a hybrid plan.
Excuse me, unless somebody in the council has a different opinion, I think we're getting too much in the weeds here.
Okay.
I think we need to shorten this up.
Yeah, okay. I hear you.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
In summary, what I would emphasize really would be the disability, the death benefits, and the retirement benefits are much better under the police and fire plan, particularly the retirement. And I think in the introduction, when it kind of from the agency perspective, when it comes to retaining employees and attracting police from nearby cities, counties, I think the police and fire, they obviously can both speak to it much better than I can. That's why this is a much more attractive option than something like KPERS 3, which is more of similar to like a 401k type plan.
You made a comment about the disability, and I can't remember all the things you said about it, but it sounded like maybe this might be a replacement of work comp in some situations. Is that true, or am I just misunderstanding something?
I don't think it's necessarily true. Disability is, the way I would kind of differentiate it is it's more of there's no long-term waiting period. And you might know more about disability plans than long-term disability is what KPERS has, where you have to wait a long time.
Right.
And you
Yes.
eventually get a payment, whereas KPNF doesn't, it's not long-term. It's occupational, meaning if you're hurt or injured on the job, which is very likely in some cases.
But that's what workers' comp says. If you're injured on the job and you're
Yeah,
disabled,
okay,
you
from
get
that,
a
yeah.
you get a disability benefit.
Sure,
And
yeah, and
there's short-term and long-term benefit to that. Yeah.
absolutely, okay, I got you.
And I didn't know if this replaced that or if this is an addition to that.
It would have lowered the cost in that area. Is that?
And maybe it does that. That's what I'm trying to understand.
We would have
I was
workers' comp
wondering, do we
right
have-
after the injury, and after workers' comp, if there was they would have to apply for disability through KPERS or KPNF, either one. And then it would have to be approved based on the injury and the reports from the doctors as to whether or not the injury qualified for a disability. And of course, whether or not it happened while
Okay.
they were employed by us doing the job we
Right.
expect them to do.
Okay.
So the workers' comp comes into play long before the disability determination.
So, but workers' comp has a disability aspect to it, and that, so
Yes.
maybe Ted has something to weigh in on that. I don't know, but
Do
just,
we provide life or disability outside of the KPERS plan?
No, each KPERS member is covered with, that's the only plan we
We
cover with
I
them.
just was thinking if we had a separate plan, then that would
Yeah.
reduce the cost of this.
We can go into work comp versus long-term disability. I'll say so standard KPERS, if you die on the job, you get 1/2 time salary to your beneficiary. So if I die, my wife gets
Right.
1/2
Okay.
times. With KPNF, it's a lot different. With disability, and this is my understanding of it with KPERS, say you get hurt on the job, you're able to do a different job, they'll make you do that job.
Right.
Occupational is different. With work comp, that's where you get a little gray areas. A lot of work comp is designed around the medical bills that give you if something happens, and then they'll kind of retire you from that side, and then long-term disability kicks in. So yes, work comp will still step in and cover medical bills. We won't replace work comp, but the long-term elements of disability are much, what I've read, much better with KPNF.
I
So
think we're probably talking about a fairly unusual case anyway, so, yeah, okay, thank you.
Are there any other alternatives to consider other than KPERS or KPNF for retirement solutions?
Ally? I
For
believe
our-
it's one or the other for,
Is
For us.
it a legal or statutory requirement that those be the options for?
Yeah, because you're affiliated with KPERS, affiliation with KPERS is irrevocable, meaning Once you're in, you can't get out. KPNF is kind of the same way. You're not affiliated with, if you did affiliate with KPNF, anyone who met that definition would have to do KPNF. But that's, yeah.
I was just wondering if there were other potentially more competitive private sector retirement programs that would be at lower cost,
are.
better benefits that we could consider in our alternatives here.
KPERS is it's
Mhm.
it's a good plan. We say kind of in the education, it's not designed to be a standalone, especially KPERS. So there's voluntary retirement plan, Social Security that makes up kind of the full retirement picture. I think police and fire, obviously a bigger portion of that retirement than KPERS when it comes to that total portfolio.
So years ago, when I approached Ty with the thought of going to KPNF, this system was not in place as it is now, because it was going to cost for 12, 13 officers. It was going to cost roughly $1.2 million to buy into the KPNF program. The state changed the rules and they changed the vesting. So I'm vested in 5 years. Okay, but with KPNF, it's 15 years. So say Lieutenant Fox has 14 years. He has 1 year to go before he's vested. I have almost 9 years. I've got to go to 15 to be vested, to be able to retire, unless I go early. If I qualify, I don't think I will. There have been big changes to the KPNF system, to the retirement systems, from one and go to the other for those better benefits.
The one thing to keep in mind is KPNF is an umbrella of KPERS. So it's still under the KPERS umbrella. It's just it's a separate entity for first responders.
So if you have your document and go to the last page, you can see from 2020, Ted helped me out with some numbers here, how the difference would come into play, because we're already putting in, we're giving funds for KPERS right now, but if we would put in funds for KPNF, and you can see how it transitions from year to year, and maybe that percentage goes up or down, and that has to do with how it's funded by the state. So on some years, like when it went down this year, it's lower. It's lower because the state funded the retirement program, the KPERS, KPNF, more so than they did in past years. And the markets were good to some degree. And so they were able to lower the rate that the cities pay into the system. We're going to maintain at let's see, the 7.5%.
7.15 is what the
Yes.
members contribute, and then the employers for KPNF is that higher.
22.99. So it's going to move.
Rates change every year.
They can. They can
little bit,
fluctuate.
yeah. There were in 21. There was $1 billion was put into the trust fund from the state government, and so that actually one benefit of that was it actually lowered the employer rates a little bit.
And several years ago, when roads and bridges needed to be repaired, that rate went up a little bit because the state refused to put money into the retirement fund to fund it. So right now we're at 122,000, and the difference, what we would end up paying if we went. Is the difference? I'm sorry. Where's my other number?
So this is what we're currently paying.
Okay. We would pay 122,000 more a year right now with our current staffing. So that's where we are. And I've talked to Ted. Ted says it's probably attainable. And of course, it's up to you to determine whether or not that's going to happen. Do you have any specific questions other than the ones you've already asked?
Your proposal is that if we approve this, of course, we can't approve it tonight, but if we approve this, if we go into effect the 1st of January?
Yes, That is correct. Because as I recall, it can only go into effect at the 1st of January.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question, and it's probably going to be taken wrong by everybody, but I don't mean it to be bad. You mentioned that people were considering taking lower paying jobs elsewhere. Excuse me. Does that mean we wouldn't have to offer as high wages to get people to come to work here?
No. We still have people who work here who need their wages.
I agree, but I'm just looking for a way to take part of this 120,000 out. That's a big ask.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. David.
I've got several questions. Alec, maybe the first one's to you. When you say full retirement, stupid question here. When you say full retirement, you mean 100% of your last wages or some formula thereof?
What I mean by that is, so KPNF has that retirement eligibility. So if you meet that benchmark, 50 with 25 or 55 with 20, it's basically a formula. And actually the formula is right up here. So this would be somebody with 15 years of service. They take the final average salary, which is their highest years averaged out, times that 2.5% multiplier. And that's how they come up with somebody's monthly benefit. So this person would have had to meet one of those benchmarks, like 50 with 25, and then they're eligible for full benefits. Early retirement would be, they could do this, but if they weren't eligible for full benefits, there would be a reduction factor, so they'd get less than.
And I'm going to tell you, none of my officers make 119,000
Yeah,
a year.
that's an odd, I had noticed that too. That seems-
Who's
Yeah.
doing
that
that?
was-
So probably about
Yeah, I would agree.
more
with
than
you.
half of that.
I'm
So
not sure where
you can
that's at.
calculate out what their weight. or
My only thought on
retirement
that
would be.
was it is based on salary.
Yes.
And so an officer might be much better off to have the 14% put directly into his salary so that he got a high retirement rather than put into the state fund so that he got a retirement benefit.
Yeah, now, so KPERS is calculated, KPERS 1 and 2 is calculated similarly to this, except there's a lower multiplier. So for KPERS 1, instead of 2.5, it's 1.75. So they get a little bit less for those years, and they also have to work longer. KPERS 3, and I know I was kind of all over the place, but KPERS 3 is much different. So KPERS 3 does not have this formula. It basically has, and I don't have a good slide for you, but, and I'm a KPERS 3 member, I contribute, and my retirement is essentially based on my contributions, interest I've earned, and then these things called retirement credits, which are good. I would say if I put the years in at KPERS 3, I'll get a good lifetime benefit, but it's not as good as kind of police and fire. It kind of, I'm gonna have to probably work 30 years to hit that eligibility and see,
And even then, it's not a standalone, and it's more like an annuity.
It
Tier
is, yeah.
tier 3 is more like an annuity.
We-
So whatever's in there, it's just paid out in some small, because it's not anything like tier 1, in a smaller increment than you would get if you were tier 1 or tier 2. And like Alex said, it should never be a standalone. You need something else to go with that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then a follow-up clarification to Councilman Smith's question. Is it illegal for a city entity to fund a private retirement, either supplement or separate? Or do employees have to belong to KPERS?
For, it's, once you're affiliated with KPERS, that is irrevocable. So Wade, I don't know that you have to.
I think what he's saying is you have to stay in KPERS.
Yeah.
But if you want to do something else
Yeah.
in addition to that, you would be able to do that.
Yeah, there's voluntary, sorry, I misunderstood. You got voluntary options out there. We offer the KPERS 457. I think you might be, unless I saw, are you part of the KPERS 457?
Yeah, we offer a 457 plan.
Okay,
It's
and
KPERS.
whether, it's same idea, that's a voluntary plan that's available.
Question. What happens if an officer's working someplace under KPNF and were to come here? Do their benefits get frozen? Do they accumulate anything while they're here? Do they
So,
lose everything?
so if they come and they're KPNF and they come here, that's frozen and they start anew with a KPERS fund. And if they go back, they start over with their KPNF.
So let's say you have a person, scenario one would be a KPNF person from another city who comes here, and let's say you have KPNF and they have 15 years of KPNF. If you have KPNF, their time just transfers right over automatically. They just pick up, they've been during their 16th, 17th year, it just transfers over. If they have KPERS, you're correct. What would happen is their KPNF comes over and they would start a new KPERS plan. There is a thing we didn't really get into much tonight called portability, which allows you to combine years. That might be a discussion for another time.
So, and that's what I explained
Yeah.
about Lieutenant Fox here. He's got the number, he's got 14 years. It's 15 years to vest in KPNF. He only has 1 year left versus me. I've got several more years before I'm vested in KPNF. This is not going to do me any good at all if we go that way, but it will take care of your younger officers who are here, who want to stay here and would rather not leave to go somewhere else.
And that's what I was going to hint at or touch on is we've talked to all of our officers that we currently have. Pay is not a topic of discussion. Everybody is very pleased with pay.
You've done well.
It comes down now to we're playing the catch-up game. It's retirement. These folks are looking at, and you've got a lot of young officers here. They're looking at their long-term retirement and how are they going to support their families long-term? How are they going to support themselves? What happens if something happens to them and they can no longer do that? Under KPNF, that makes that decision and the ability for them to provide for their family long-term better than what KPERS offers in a much faster time frame in addition to that. I can tell you right now, every one of our officers would love for us to go to KPNF, but we do have 3 currently who have voiced concern that if this does not happen, they could leave. One's been here 8 years. I don't think we want to lose that person. I don't want to lose any of them, to be honest with you. We have a great group of police officers. And for the thought of them to even think about going somewhere else because of their future, to me, it's disheartening. I mean, it really is. Chief and I, we're not doing this for him and I. We're doing it for the staff we have and any future staff that we bring on. That's what we're really looking for.
And I just put up the retirement eligibility again. So KPERS 3 would be 60 with 30 or 65 with 5 for full retirement compared to police and fire, which offers that, a much younger, they can retire sooner.
And I know a concern is that, well, if they can retire at 20 years, well, then we're just keeping them for 20 years. I don't think you have that problem. I think you have dedicated officers that are here right now that will stay beyond that 20 years because they enjoy working here. They enjoy the city, they enjoy the staff, they enjoy the work. This is a benefit that is going to make that even more positive for them.
One of our big concerns, and I think you already know what it is. We're going to be growing over the next 7 to 10 years. We've got a lot of businesses that are going to be here. We're going to have to increase in staff, and we have great concerns about bringing people in who might be experienced, who can just really get on their feet and get going and take care of the city. When we've already had 20 plus people turn us away because they're looking to their futures. Any other questions?
I don't think I have any questions. I think this is something to consider and really great information, but I need to think about it in the context of our broader budget discussion for me personally, to have an opinion on it.
I did want to add, this one doesn't have a stopwatch to it as much as the previous one because we're on that 45-day limit. I didn't want it to go any further without having a decision, and I hope you all change your minds. having them installed already, because there would be a cost to having them removed if we didn't give them a decision, and I wanted to not have that happen. But I still hope you reconsider on that and think favorably on it also. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please get with Lieutenant Fox or myself, and we will really certainly try to answer those questions. And if we can't, we'll look to Ted because he's got some of those answers. And then we've also got access to Alec.
You're more than welcome to reach out to me with any questions or concerns. I brought some handouts and stuff I can leave with you.
I will, in closing, say that recently, on the 27th of last month, the governor signed a bill that puts DROP, the Deferred Retirement Option Plan, to members of KPNF that is not available to members of KPERS. And what that does is it can be a great tool for maintaining your staff for a long period of time, because what it does is that a real short version is you stay longer, the city quits paying into your retirement, and they put that money instead into a fund that you get as a lump sum when you leave. So it's revenue neutral. It doesn't hurt any budget. It just keeps trained personnel here longer, so they can still be a benefit to the city and not be a drain on our funds. So, but that's that as of the 27th of last month. That's available to KPERS employees where it's not available, or KPNF employees where it's not available to KPERS, and that's really attractive to a lot of people. And like I said, it only goes with KPNF.
Chief, one quick clarification before you wrap up. So I'm hearing you say this is a recruiting and retention tool. We've discussed that, we're wondering if there's other options to augment KPERS other than KPNF. The numbers, the 120 some thousand, 13 officers, that's about $10,000 a month of additional city expense. And I get why you're asking for it. Is there any other, or can you do some research on, and I'm sure if you'd heard guys talking about 401k options, you probably would have shared those with us, but I just implore you to go back and find if there's other options that we could consider augmenting KPERS and what those costs may look like in comparison to KPNF. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate the presentations. Next item we have is capital improvements. And when you talk about swimming pool, I think Mr. Brian Hayes is here to visit with us, or do you have a presentation you wanted to make?
Actually, a little bit.
Okay. Thank you.
He's here to back.
Okay.
Can you take a break? Take a 5-minute break?
Yeah, I'm fine. Let's take a 5-minute break and then we'll get into that. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
I just wanted to give you an update on the pool. Because pool's going to be open in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Do you have enough lifeguards? Not enough lifeguards. Struggling getting staff. So the Central Park pool was number 8 on your priority list. It's our annual debt service, 41,000. We got about 327,000 left, and it'll pay off in 2030. So the issue we've had is the plasters coming up. People are stubbing their toes, things like that, and it's a rough surface. So there's issues with the pool in and of itself. We've talked about all this. So we talked about replacing it with a splash pad. And so Brian's did a survey about the rec center and parks, or 3 parks and things like that. So we included something about that in the survey. So what the survey said was, has anybody in your household used the Central Park pool? And 192 said yes, and 122 said no. So there was about 330 respondents, which they said is not bad. I think in your packet was the entire survey, I believe. So you can see all the other stuff that was in there, but we're just going to talk about the pool. How satisfied are you? About 43% were at the 3 level, so they were okay with the pool. No one was extremely satisfied with it. And then the question is, costs are going up. Brian asked me if he could pay his lifeguards more because he can't hire anybody, and we need to be competitive. So we're raising the starting salary on our lifeguards so that we can get lifeguards. So then we said, well, are people willing to pay more to use the pool? And ironically, it was 50-50. 154 said yes, they would pay more, and 154 said no, they wouldn't. So that's a tie right there. Probably the same. So, and then we asked, what about converting the splash pad to a pool? And we had 136 said yes, they would support that, and 168 said no, they didn't like that idea. So that was kind of interesting. So I sent out RFPs to see what it would cost to design a pool. I sent it to 6 different companies, only had 1 respond. So Donlinger actually does that, and they work with a pool company. What's the name of that pool? Water's Edge. They kind of coordinate to do proposals. That's kind of what they came up with as kind of a design. This probably scared you when you got to that point. They come up with about $700,000 for the splash pad, and then removing the current pool, renovation of the pool house, etc. This is flawed though, and I'm going to talk about that because I met with them today. So, we talked about options was replace a pool liner, which could be 70 to 150,000, depends on what all they have to do to the pool. We could replaster it. That's around 32,000 plus. You're going to get 7 to 10. You still got the rough surface, or switch it to a splash pad. The positives about that is you have no staff. They can be open from May 1 to October 15th is the average time of that. The operations could be 10,000, something like that. Same age group is going to use the pool and the splash pad because our pool has no amenities, no diving boards, no slides, nothing. The interesting thing is that they can put in equipment that you can actually use year round, like a slide. You put it during the summer, you have water running down it. During the winter, you don't, but you can still use it as a slide, which was kind of interesting. So it could do both.
Is there some kind of control that you cannot have the water on it once people are there?
Yep. They have those, which are nice. It conserves water and stuff. They go up and hit the button and the thing comes on. So, we had the options of replastering, a new liner, close the pool totally, or do a splash pad at the current location. So what council decided was we would patch it this year and open, which is what Brian's going to do. And then we were going to look at, okay, what do we do for the years after that? So what Donlinger proposed was this 700,000. They just kind of put together a splash pad, and then the renovation of the pool house. They just came up with some prices, but they don't know what we want. They don't know what we want in a splash pad. They don't know what we want in the pool house. And so those numbers can go up or down depending on what it is that we want. And so they said it was very difficult, and probably why we didn't get a lot of responses is because, well, I think probably everybody's busy, but no one just really knew what to do. And so what they proposed would be to, and they said they would get me a proposal, but spend maybe, 40, 50,000, and then they would work with the council, with the community, and say, okay, if we're going to do this, do some education. They do community outreach and say, okay, if we're going to do this, this is, what do we want? And then this number would change based on what everybody wanted and what they were willing to pay. And then again, the same thing with the pool house. What do we want that to be? So they said that it's really, if we wanted to do something like that, it would work really well actually through the summer, because then they could capture people at the pool and get their input and things like that. So really what they're saying is, we could, and obviously that would reduce the amount of that because this included the design of it. Well, if we basically paid them to design it, then we're just paying for whatever equipment that we would want. And, I think council could set a budget. If you said, we're interested in doing this, we're willing to pay this amount, and then they could go out and talk to the citizens, find out what they want, and come up with a price to match that. So that's an option, because this price tag is pretty high.
Sorry.
No, I mean, removing the current pool, they were looking at 35,000. Now, what it would be to replace it, I don't have a clue.
I'm guessing something very similar.
$1 million probably. A basic pool.
Am I recalling though that there's kind of a fundamental problem with that location and the groundwater that isn't really solvable?
Yeah.
It is solvable. It just needs underground drainage, which was never constructed.
Okay.
Kind of like your basement at your house with the sump pump and drain.
So we're doing a park study, right? And this park is included in that study, right?
Yes.
So how's that play with this whole pool decision?
So the park study, let's see, I don't know if I got a good picture. Okay, so yeah, so this is where the current pool is at, and the pool house. The park that we're talking about is actually over here, where there's some playground equipment and a large open area that we could do
Right.
stuff and utilize the parking lot. So really that park study is more of a true park and amenities, not anything
So it's
with
just
the
looking at
pool.
that area, not
Yeah.
looking at the berms around the pool or any of that. It's just,
No.
just everything west of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, to
Probably
enhance
west of
the
the drive.
park. Right.
Okay.
Besides the question about do you want a splash pad, which was no, based on that question.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a specific question about splash pad versus
Yeah.
pool.
Right. There was.
Was that to replace the pool or was that to have a splash pad? I can't remember how that was phrased.
Yeah, let's see.
That's what I thought. So, I mean, that's a different question for some people because I heard it in
Yeah.
the neighborhood. People don't want the pool to be replaced. I think if the question was phrased, do you want a splash pad, and didn't talk about the pool, it'd probably be a different
Well,
answer.
I think that's a
Which is not
fundamental problem with surveys is the
Exactly.
wording is really important. And
Yeah.
that doesn't really reflect the choice because it doesn't provide the context of, well, something has to be done. That do nothing isn't an option. So
Right.
if
I just
the
point that
option
out.
could be have a splash pad and no pool, or have nothing,
Yep.
or some other multitude of options, those are all the things that we'd want to have factor into
Yep.
people making those selections.
Yep. So
Yeah, I think the problem I have with this is, that number is a lot higher than I think anybody anticipated, and I think I would not feel comfortable hiring Donlinger or hiring any contractor without knowing what is our budget. Like, what is our budget? Like, I don't want to run them down the road, sign them up for 50,000, design something, start talking about budget when we don't think we have a good feel for A, do we even want a splash pad to replace our pool? And B, how much are we willing to spend on said splash pad to replace a pool? That's just my 2 cents. And so figured I'd throw that out there.
I think we were looking at a splash pad because we thought it would be cheaper. And if we're going to end up spending the same dollars, I would lean towards ripping the pool out and building it right.
I guess I don't agree with that. I think you can buy a lot of park and liner for $1 million. Like,
Yeah.
I would advocate that we seriously consider doing a better liner potentially.
If that would solve a problem for
solve it.
10 years, then yeah, I kind of agree with you. I just was
Got
between
it.
those two options, I would take a new pool. But
On a cost per year basis, the Band-Aids might be more effective.
that's true sometimes.
Ms. Hamburg.
That's kind of where I landed. I want, I thought the splash pad, if it was cheaper and it offered a longer time and more kids could use it because somebody's got 6 kids and they don't want to, they can't take their kids there by themselves or whatever. But just an overarching theme is, I know sometimes people talk about the bedroom community like it's an insult, but I think it's an advantage. Is we have to keep in mind that the YMCA is down the road. Some people live closer to Planet Fitness for $10 a month than if we ever tried to build a comparable fitness, center, those sort of things. So I don't want to spend $1 million on a splash pad, but I question even the pool long term. I'm okay with the Band-Aids in the short term because it's there and it's a sunk cost and we're paying on it till 2030. But for what it would take to get an awesome pool that lots of ages would enjoy being at, I don't know that we can justify that or that we need to, being so close to Wichita and other amenities. But yeah, I'm sure not in favor of the splash pad anymore. So
I don't know if we actually threw this out there, but I know that at one time this pool was supposed to it was supposed to be an HOA pool, and the city took it over. And I don't remember all that history, but it's okay. We don't have to go back through it. Have we considered turning it back over to an HOA?
It's been discussed over time. Let's see here. So the first reason we haven't done it is we've got 327. So we've got bonds on this.
Yeah.
And so you have to have the asset to
There's a
hold
covenant
the
on the bond
bonds.
for the asset?
Yeah.
Okay. all
And
right.
so we can't do anything with it until the bonds are paid off. The other issue is that, because there was a thought about, well, leasing it or whatever. Well, then our insurance company gets concerned because we technically own it. And if there's no lifeguards or anything there and someone drowns, who are they going to go? They're going to go after the city because even though the city somebody said it earlier, did a contract and leased it out and someone died, it's going to go back on the city. So those are the issues. We haven't done anything like that. So in that regards, we're going to own it till 2030. And maybe what I'm hearing is maybe we Band-Aid it to 2030 and then figure out what to do with it.
I mean, I assume it could be sold as long as we paid off the debt.
Yeah.
And there could be an arrangement that was made. I don't know how I feel about that idea, but I think there's probably a logistical way to make that happen and resolve all
Well,
those concerns.
If they were go bonds, there wouldn't be any asset requirement on there, but I assume these are not that.
No, they're not PVC.
Okay.
Have we set the rates for this year and have they increased any from the previous years?
Um,
Rates were set last fall and they did not increase.
Okay, that probably was a mistake then. Especially since you're having to pay more for lifeguards. Are we able to reset those rates now or not?
They're set.
I mean, it
They're
has
set
to
in the
go
fee
open.
schedule.
Yeah.
We discuss it at the end of every year.
But could we?
The issue, and we used to have an HOA kind of contribution. We ended up breaking even last year, so we wanted it with record kind of attendance, and maybe we could jump it up a dollar or two, but we were worried of not breaking even due to cost. So we just wanted to let it ride one more year, but we're cognizant of what we're charging. But yeah, we can bring up anything you want.
Well, everything else is going up. It's a great deal to get into the pool for the same rate as last year's. But
What is that rate? Does anybody know off the top of their head?
$5 a head.
That's each time you use the pool, right? Okay.
And there's summer passes too that are like $200.
Okay. Okay.
Which is very, very reasonable.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I'm not anti splash pad. I just don't think that our community can support it financially when you look at the numbers. And I'm not saying that I don't want to see that for our community one day. Maybe in 5 or 10 years as we're growing, there's an opportunity and maybe there's a better location. Maybe it's a part of a massive master plan with the rec center. There's an opportunity probably sometime in the future, but I don't think it's now.
I had like $150,000 in mind, was like, I think a number we talked about at one point, which is maybe double the cost of band-aiding the pool, but
Yeah.
pays for itself pretty quickly in terms of reduced
Yeah.
maintenance costs.
so what I'm hearing is we need to decide if we want to do replaster it or buy a liner, because we all kind of think keeping the pool is a better idea.
Yeah, so you want to decide that in the next few months, because once the pool closes down, we need to get them scheduled to do something.
When is that work typically done?
They recommend it in the fall, actually.
And so if we wanted it done this fall, when would we need to have a decision?
Probably very soon.
But it sounds
Next
like
month or
we
so.
almost don't have the possibility of plaster from what I read. But there was only one company that was doing that, and he wasn't real reliable, was maybe the word.
When we were in Overland Park, I talked to some vendors and things that were really down on pool liners, that there were like other issues on top of our groundwater issues putting pressure on it. Did they have concerns with the groundwater of the liner failing prematurely? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility that our patching of the pool this year can parlay into another patching of the plaster next year, or?
Don't know yet. We uncovered the pool Friday and drained it this weekend. It's covered with about that much algae. We haven't cleaned it yet, so we don't know what it looks like.
Okay.
I did walk on the bottom and I felt it heard some things. So there's probably some plaster that needs to come up and needs patched, which that's not a good sign for the basin. It's separated from the concrete.
Does it still hold water?
It does hold water.
Okay,
It was full of water, nice green black water.
as long as we're not wasting water is the first concern, I guess. If it was leaking too bad, I'd say we'd just have to close it for the year, but
That's one good thing, we do have a very good pool basin. Holds water.
Just as a side note, I do like John's idea. I don't think people would have sticker shock if we jumped $1 or something with the cost of everything else to kind of help offset whatever we decide to do.
We'll kind of do a survey of what other pools are charging and bring some recommendations to you.
Okay. Yeah, we need to do that right away, though, if you're gonna open that pool right away. Right?
Yes, sir. We're going to
We need
need
to know
that next
next
council
week.
meeting.
We already started selling memberships.
We have not.
I'm not
We
even-
already charge more to get in than what City of Wichita does.
They're closing all their pools.
But people pay it because.
Switching them to splash pads.
Private, laid back area, they don't have a problem paying. I think it's $4 is the day fee. I think we could go up to $5 very easily and adjust maybe the summer pass accordingly.
Well, come up with a proposal for, if you can, for Tuesday, that'd be great, but I know that might be short notice. Might be hard, but okay. I guess,
And then
from what I'm hearing, we would just want to go get quotes for replastering this pool in the fall. That's what I'm hearing.
I don't know,
For
I
the
missed
fall.
something. Why are we not talking about the liner? Was there an issue? I know you asked, but I
Pool.
missed the answer.
Well, I asked every company about the issues of the groundwater, and they all gave me a song and dance. They all
So,
said, no problem, but one company said, you really need to do this and this and this and this, and that's gonna cost you as much as the liner itself.
so we don't think liner is a feasible option.
I just don't have any experience to tell you one way or another.
Okay, then we need to find somebody that can plaster it, I guess. I agree.
This is
Yeah.
part of the problem with operating a pool, which is something that's kind of outside the expertise of the government.
Yeah, but Brian tells me he has experience, so.
Okay. This item is budget and 2024 forecast and intro. I hope you got a short intro.
I looked at the agenda and made sure I was getting short, but I just got a text from one of our employees who's watching tonight, and they say rec usually puts an insert in the utility bills about the pool on the May, which is coming up, which is actually next Monday. So, maybe we could, I think it'll have to be next Tuesday. FYI, it might just be the fee schedule with an update, and then probably not much of a report. It'll just because everything's due by tomorrow. So it'll probably just be a fee schedule in there, and then we can discuss it at the bench and then make a decision so that we can make that cutoff and promote what the fees are for May. So
Can we delay mailing the bills 2 days?
I hate doing it.
I know, but
It's
it screws everybody up.
what date is it? The 15th is pretty important date for mailing bills, and the 15th is next Monday.
That's why you put the grease stuff in as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can make the decision it's not a hard deadline, but we would like to try to keep to our utility billing schedule as much as possible. So there's a lot more issues when you delay that than a $4 to $5 increase. So anyway,
What if we just bumped it up then and see how many people complain and they show up at the pool and we have a special?
we'll try to figure out the timing for you, but I just wanted to report that. As far as my presentation, like I said, I looked at the agenda and I know we're going to be tight on time, but I think there's something in our May workshop we need to, start the discussion. I'll probably have a stool up here for the June and July workshops because it's going to be a hard budget season. There's no way around it, guys. We're going to have a lot of discussions, and we're going to have to stay on point as much as possible because there's tons of stuff in there, and I'm just now digging deep into it, and there's just what ifs galore. So we're going to have to stay on schedule and really determine what we want and what's a need. I talked to Ty. I was like, man, I'd love to do like a tour of Bel Aire. We're all creatures of habit. I come in, I go from my home to the city hall the same way. I'd implore you to just drive around the neighborhoods. It is shocking to see what's happened over the last couple of years. And it really highlights our growth and what we're doing. You've seen the slide before. This is what we provide as a city. Couple of things happened since last time. I would ask you to Google the Nashville shooting and watch the police cam footage. It's really shocking of what police officers. I used to think, the SWAT team's going to go in and get it. No, it's a guy that looked like Daryl Atterbury, just pulled up to the front and just grabbed his rifle and went in. So I watched that, as well as I'm here every day. I see the challenges across the board, have teachers, all these. Chief Atterbury had to run a stop because there's an accident over the hill, got flipped off 3 times in about a 10-minute stop. So there's a lot. I'm not saying those are Bel Aire residents, but I'm just saying that's what we're battling as providing services. Our building inspectors get yelled at a lot for making them re-inspect, but how many lives are we saving by saying you need that railing up another 2 inches? We're not going to allow shoddy work in our city. That's a lot of the services we provide. Parks, quality of life, we just talk about it. What if, the biggest thing I'm concerned about, and Ty is too, is just thin margins we have. I'm one of two people that know how to write a check in our city, in our whole city. Brian is the only guy that has the keys to the. I can imagine if the pool something happens, what we're gonna spend $50,000 getting a contract. Not wishing anything, but those are the thin margins small cities run on. And as we're growing, that's stretched even further. So just something to keep in mind as we start talking about services and growth. This scares me. This is all the developments that are currently active right now in Bel Aire. There's another big one that we know of. But yeah, that's a lot of work that's going on in our city. That's the other one that had not even represented in this. Last year alone, about 323 new customers signed on. That's just permitting. So we're going to feel the effects of that in the next 2 to 3 as they keep building houses. Think, okay, maybe there's just 2 people. Maybe there's just couples moving into Bel Aire. And that's still 600 more residents we're serving in that 1 year alone. This is what happens when you say, it's what if we grow 500 citizens every year? That's what our population line looks like. Now we can start talking a little bit about budget. Property taxes are 50% of all our general fund revenues. One thing, and this is going to dominate a lot of our conversations of what we've been seeing is everybody's got their appraisal this year. It's big. Mine's big. Everyone's, a little larger. The best thing about property taxes for cities as a whole is they're very reliable, dependable source. You'll notice a lot of what maybe we are using as one-time expenses are coming from some of the fees that the permit fees. We've talked about that when we were forecasting. Those property taxes are kind of the base of our budget. So anything we do, we have to think long and hard of how it affects, because we can't count on one-time fees or revenue. So I'm just trying to remind you of what they provide for our budget. When we talk as well as property taxes, we look, and I don't know if you've talked to citizens, if they really just see that total property tax levy. They somewhat know what each goes to, but this is kind of what we're judged on as total property tax levy. Not saying that that's not total city is not important, but that's where we fall with the surrounding areas currently in our property taxes. This next slide I'm going to show you is what the surrounding cities have done in the last 3 years with their mill levy. And it's a little hard to see, not too bad, but Sedgwick County, they've grown about 16% in assessed valuation. They haven't touched their mill levy, and the last 3 years, about $43 million due to their growth they've collected. Wichita School District, they actually went down about $1.5 million. They grew 14%, about $40 million. So when we get those revenue neutral rates and you'll see, Bel Aire 7% or in Sedgwick County only 3%. Well, that's the problem with percentages. Their 3% is a whole lot more than our 7%. So the whole math side of things, you'll have to see. Wichita, they have no reason to lower their mill levy. They're already the lowest. So why would they do that? They're going to keep everything, and they grew about 17% over the last 3 years. Andover, same thing, about 13%. They haven't touched their mill levy. Derby, they're doing about a 0.5 the last 2 years, so 1 mill levy total. That generated that saved citizens about $450,000, as well as they grew 26%. We grew about 33% over the last 3 years. We gave back 2 mills, about $370,000 back to our citizens. Goddard, along the same lines as us, 2 mills, and about $100,000 give back. Hayesville, they grew about 23%. It's just easy when I do my research there at Sedgwick County City. About 2.5 mills, about $450,000. Park City, one of our competitors in Valley Center, Park City grew quite a bit because they're doing a lot of warehouse districts. They haven't touched their mill, as well as Valley Center hasn't touched their mill in the last 3 years. So just some comparisons. I don't like. Every city is different. Everybody's different in their development. Everybody's different in their needs, but I think it's important to show what's going on. If we talk about rates, and this next slide is, I thought would be useful. The top is the city as a whole. So in 2022, we had an assessed valuation of $77 million. And at an old rate of 45.5, we collected about $3.5 million. We lowered that rate to 43.5, collected about $3.3 million. So what lowering that rate 2 mils and then saying, okay, maybe in 2024, which is this budget cycle, the whole city goes up 20% in evaluation. That's a good jump. That's a real good jump. But the remaining time, we only go up 5%. The fact that we lower it 2 mils over the next 10 years costs us about $2.5 million in the next 10 years by that lowering that 2 mils. If we decide, hey, let's lower another mill because we raised 20% in evaluation, that'll cost us about another $1 million. So the total cost, if our evaluation only goes up 20% in 2024, and then just 5% over the next 6 more years or 8 more years, we'll give back about $3.7 million of total funds. So that's what lowering the mill, the total mill over the 10 years for a homeowner with a $300,000 house. So if we would have kept the rate consistent, you have a rate, but we didn't. We lowered 2 mils. They saved about $800 on a $300,000 house over the next 10 years. This is just city property taxes. Say in 2024 we lower another mill, they'll save an additional $300. So essentially the 1.1 million that we would give up over the next 10 years would save the citizen about $300 over the next 10 years, or $1,000 total over the next 10 years. But a $300,000 already built will probably appreciate. Let's say we have a steady appreciation for 5% over the next 10 years. That's great for your house. The cities don't appreciate in a standard manner, especially a growing city. So this next slide, what if we grew to 20% over the next 5 years? How much would it cost us if we chose to keep, to lower a mill? What that two mil lower in 2022, about $3.7 million to the city, but the person with the $300,000 house remains at $800. So we got to keep this in mind as we continue to add and grow, that as we lower the mill levy, and I understand a lot of people would like to do that, and we can put it in some estimates, but what it saves the citizen versus what it saves the city is going to be a lot different in the long run. As well as if we continue going, it'll be about 5.5 million if we grow at 20% over the next 5 and then level off over the remaining 3. So this is just trying to show the difference between a house already built, just appreciating at maybe 5% versus a city as a whole that's growing and has future demands. Again, a little complicated, but I thought it's an important conversation to have as we go into budget season. What are our risks? I presented this at a workshop or something, and I added a few risks. We always have a housing market risk. Right now, it doesn't seem. I mean, we're still watching permits and we're still growing. So I'm really cognizant, but with interest rates in the Fed, it definitely has an effect on the housing market. Economic recession is always, I think most people remember 2008. I don't think we have structural problems like we did in 2008, but there is still risk there. All our GO bonds are guaranteed by the taxing authority of the city. A lot of these projects are bonded through special assessments. Those are GO bonds. So that's a risk to our city if in out years, if maybe some of these or 1 or 2 of these developments start to fail, that's what we have, kind of the Terra Verde model where we have to cover those costs. Operational expenses risk, inflation. I'm still working on trying to figure out what electricity and all the other elements are going to cost over the next 2 to 3 years. And I'm working on it. Workforce shortages. I think you guys know with the city attorney search, I know it's a specialized search. That's kind of across the board. There's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts about the current workforce. Retention, we had a little flavor of retention today with KPNF and KPERS discussion is everybody's using every tool they can to recruit a police officer. I guarantee it. Look around. There's $10,000. We'll hand it to you after 6 months. Plus we have KPNF. Plus we match your rates. So that's what we're kind of up against, is a lot of those types of retention issues. And you better believe officers and chiefs are calling over and saying, hey, guess what? We'll do this. So it's a very competitive market for very few. State legislation is a little scary this year, to say the least. Not that all these aren't bad things. I'm not trying to say it's just their risk to the city's finances that we have to be aware of. If we collect 1% of the Sedgwick County sales tax, and 20% of that is probably generated through grocery stores. So that would give us a haircut about $300,000 if that goes away. Assessment caps. What would a 4% cap look like under this scenario? How much, would potentially we be hamstrung and growing? That's been discussed up in the State House, as well as tax exemptions for like businesses. Again, we don't have too many businesses right now, but we still collect off that one. It's still a risk with our property taxes. Could be affected if someone was deemed, Wichita Hoops, stuff like that is deemed necessary of a competitor. So something we have to be on the watch out. How do we protect again? And really, a lot of these conversations are all going to go down to how do we protect on this risk, maintain our reserves. I'm probably not going to let you change our fiscal policy on 30% reserves due to all our growth, as well as the main reason why our S&P rating went up, meaning that's a good thing, is because of our development and our reserve policy and our management policy. So those are two good things to keep. All this discussion is really, we need needs-based budget. We need priority-based budgeting, because that helps. That's a guard against any type of argument you might have is, no, we need this. This is a priority to the city council. So a lot of the next three workshops, we're going to talk a lot needs and priorities. One-time expenses, we've discussed, when I first started, we really didn't have a lot of money, and we weren't growing we put, I think, $400,000 to streets. We've done a little over $1 million the last 3 years, total last 3 years. Our growth has generated about $1.9 million over the last 3 years. So you can 100% say we've spent all our growth on improving streets. Now, of course, it all goes into kind of a big bucket, but you can say a lot of things about that. But that is a plausible argument you can give. But those were all done with one-time expenses, kind of the save and spend method we've been practicing for probably the last 5 years. We're doing it this year again. So maintaining some of those knowledge points of what can we spend as a one-time expenditure, what's an operational expenditure. And that's where it gets a little difficult in these next 3 months we're going to talk about, because a lot of our asks from our department directors are going to be staff, and staff are operational expenses. It's not building a road. It's a lot of thought process needs to go down when you discuss these. And again, anytime you met, as we talked in the February workshop, any of our excess revenues over expenditures flow right into the priorities we've identified and trying to fund, all these important priorities we have are funded mainly through us being very cognizant of what we're spending and saving, and paying cash with probably 80% of all of these, other than some of the larger projects that we're putting into our debt structure. I will say, here's kind of the hard part is our debt remains, if you remember from the forecast, our debt remains pretty high in the next 3 years, and then it starts to level down. So that's kind of where I'm looking at as we look at our growth and how we can capitalize on our growth. Once our debt kind of goes down, then we can start talking about how we want to do structure certain things. Here's this the gold. Just in 2019, that's how much we spent on special assessments, and that was our kind of our risk of, we own those lots that had special assessments. So if you look out 10 years, say, that's that risk I'm talking about. Right now, we mitigated it. That's just a risk at the bottom of that's just the specials for the land across the street. So that'll completely go away, hopefully in the next year or 3 years, definitely. As well as, and I know it doesn't look like it came on, but Woodlawn will enter so you see how in 2023 Woodlawn grows, that blue. The full cost of Woodlawn will be there in 2024. So we're gonna have increase in that, as well as increase in some operational expenses, probably proposals. Here's some of my last slides is, adopt a blank property tax rate, mill levy. That's something we'll have to discuss. These are our budget goals. If we want to do street improvements, we need to define how much, because all three of these priorities are going to combat each other. I guarantee it. The other one is provide quality service with efficiency. We need to define that. What businesses do you guys want covered? What areas of the city do you want covered? What do you don't? And do you want to staff to that level or to a standard level? These are a lot of trade-offs we're going to have. I won't let you touch sustained fiscal stability. We've been too far on that. But those are the kind of the 3 points that I see. If you have other budget goals, I please throw them out. This is really an introductory, what I'm seeing coming down the pipe over the next three workshops. We're going to have a lot of discussions, and I'm trying to frame or trying to tell you what we have to go. Now I'll stop talking for a little while and let you guys talk, but that's kind of what I anticipate over the next couple workshops.
So on the street funding improvements, we have the GIS plan with streets. I know we had some discussion about updating that plan to say, okay, what's the cost today instead of what it was when first put together a year or two ago. I don't know if that's happened yet or not. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to do that, but I would like to see that update. And also I'd like to see that we did add all the streets that were missed on it back into it, because I know a lot of them were left off because of different phases of reconstruction and such. So.
Yeah, I know we asked PEC to do that when they were here in our first round of it. The costs were way off of what was projected. They said they were going to go back and apply a factor and update those costs.
Yeah. And I just wondered if we've gotten there.
Yeah.
That's
But
all
that's what find ways to fund
Right.
streets improvement means to me, and me is fund what we've committed to doing.
Right. As far as the other issues, I don't think I should ask for those questions today. Don't have, I need some.
And that's
some
where
numbers.
I think in June, we'll probably work on general fund is our
Right.
largest fund. I'll probably give you a proposal with probably about everything on the table, and then see what priorities and needs we have that you would like addressed. I will say we really don't have a lot of fluff in our budget. We've done a pretty darn good job, and I'll try to come up with reports that shows that a lot better. I know fund accounting is a little different for everybody. I'm very familiar with it. I like it just only because it shows you the exact expense, what parks costs and what recreation costs. But I know some
Need
people
to
would
do
like,
that.
what do we pay across the board for insurance and how much does it go? And I understand that it just takes some time to create all those reports, and I'll try to get you the best estimates of what I'm seeing coming down, but as well as working with our department heads and what they see their needs are for the future. Ty could probably jump into and several different things, but as you know, in the last 3 months, how much change have we had in the last 3 months, and how much are we going to anticipate in the next 3 months? So we have to be very flexible, and I'll try to make our conversations very flexible as well. But there's certain decisions that have to be made, and we're going to have to make them. So.
No, you need to keep doing the fund accounting. I get
Yeah,
that,
no, I
and
won't
it's
do it,
important.
I'm
But
presenting-
I also appreciate
yeah.
that we're getting these AP ordinances that we can actually read and say, okay, that's how much is going for insurance.
Yeah.
And whereas when it's in fund accounting, you got to go pull it from several
Correct,
places. And that's just a lot. I get it. It's a little more work for you. I'm sorry that is. So,
Yeah.
all right.
I would like to be useful. So if there's something you guys want to see, just shoot me an email. I work for you, so let me know what you want to see, and I'll do my best to complete it.
Okay.
All this data that you put together about mill levies for other cities, do you already have that? Could you share that?
I can share it. It's difficult for guys like Ty and I because we're not trying to dog anybody or down anybody. It's more of just public information that I'm trying to provide you to give you an understanding of who our competitors are. The hard part is a lot of those cities maybe have direct priorities that they're addressing with those needs. So to compare, hey, they kept theirs, they didn't lower or something like that is a little disingenuous. So I'll definitely share my slides with you. And that's fine. I just don't want it to be taken as a dog on any other city. I don't like comparing because everybody has their own needs and wants, and truthfully, assess valuation, which makes the mill levy a whole lot more important. So.
I was just going to say, you almost thought you were going to get away. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I mean, I've been thinking about, and I like the long-term thing, like we bust your budget and then people save $30 a year or something like that. And was that worth it? But anyhow, I appreciate this preview to have time to kind of think over it because
yeah. Well, and that's the hard part is I don't know what our AB is going to. We won't know. I'm really hoping the Sedgwick County, those estimates come out. They say the 15th, but sometimes it's the 3rd. I'm really hoping it's, the 1st of June. So our next workshop, we have actual estimates we can go off of as far as what our assessed valuation is projected to be for our 2024 budget.
That comes from the county assessor?
County assessment, and I'm hoping if people are I've heard several people that are trying to challenge the value of their home. Mm-hmm. That affects our estimates as well. So I'm hoping that they're all doing that 2 months ago, so that's included in the estimates. Because really, the county clerk it's a huge program, and they'll just take the borders of Bel Aire and estimate and go. But that'll also give us kind of new construction versus the standard, what has appreciated. The problem is the mill levy is such a blunt instrument. I can't direct a mill levy for the new construction or mill levy it's a citywide mill levy. So it really doesn't matter what is what. It's your growth, and that's why priority and needs are very important for your conversations with citizens, as well as with yourself. We're all citizens, so I don't want to pay any more than anybody else does, but I also have to justify what I'm doing on this side of the aisle as well.
We have ongoing construction. As houses finish, when do they show up on the paying in property tax on their new valuations?
Usually the following year. Not to get all crazy, but we actually run budgets. So the money we're spending now was collected last year. So your tax year of 2021 or 2022 is paying for our budget year 2023, tax year 2023, paying for budget year 2024. So it'll be about a year after what you think it would be. So
your new housing starts, we were talking about 300 new housings. Those won't show up until next year's property.
Probably next year, depending on how fast they're getting built. And here's another, it's crazy to think of, but staffing levels in the county make a difference. Our staffing levels make a difference. We submit our reports to the county, but if everybody's building, how can they get all the updates? That was kind of the problem with the revenue neutral rate mailers last year. Is the county clerk was really under a tight budget or tight time frame, didn't know quite what was going on. Hopefully it'll be a lot smoother this year. Who knows? But staffing has affected all our services, our GSI, mapping systems, all those things. It really affects how effective and how responsive it is.
So the problem though is that we've got all these people coming in that need new services to support them, but they're not paying taxes yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's relatively the year after it's built. I mean, it's pretty quick response.
What is it?
I don't think they're
assessed
gonna.
based on the value of January 1st, and then
Yeah.
you pay taxes after they're due. So if it's built this year, it's assessed January 1, and you don't actually collect taxes until 2024 or
Exactly.
2025.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's going to be a while.
The stuff built
Yeah.
this year, but
Yeah.
last year.
But we still have to staff up to take care of stuff.
For the
and we
stuff
have to
being
pay
built
for
right
it,
now.
So, yeah.
The other thing I'd like you to keep in mind is, we always look at mill levies and we compare and those types of things. And Ted will get you that information. But when we talk about transparency, remember on Bel Aire's mill levy, you saw that large amount of land debt into the debt. Well, you got to, if you want to see how much we really operate this city, you need to subtract that debt out of there, because we can't. You can say, let's cut a mill of debt. Well, we can't do that. If we're going to cut a mill, it's going to be out of operations. So if you really want to look at apples to apples, subtract that debt, which is 12 mills, 13 mills, Ted can tell you, then look at the mill levy and then see what we operate on versus what other cities are doing.
Probably, so I imagine we'll be over 100 million.
That's a tough balance to make,
So
because
that's $1 million or $100,000 a mill, so 10 mills.
I agree with your point, but it's a tough act to balance, and that's what we have to do. We just got to balance it, because the other side of that is when you look at the competitiveness of the city from a new homeowner, they don't have anything to look at but the mill levy. They don't know about all those underlying things that are causing the mill levy to be what it is. They can only look at, okay, your mill levy is 45 and yours is 40. Okay, that's what I'm going to look at. Now, not everybody does that, but a lot of people do. A lot of financial people do, because I built those pro formas. Been down that road.
Well, and the mill levy's applied to the assessed valuation, which goes up a lot, right?
Right.
And so the value of my house went up. So therefore, if the mill levy's flat, my taxes are going to go up, and the
Mhm.
services that I receive are going to stay the same. So as a taxpayer, I expect my costs to go up for my taxes, just like my costs are going up everywhere else. But they probably shouldn't go up at a rate that is higher than the typical other services are going up, in my opinion. And so where we're experiencing a lot of growth that is also contributing to assessed valuation increase, that's, I think, the delicate balance that we're
Right.
going to try to walk.
Definitely.
And I know things get really sweet in 2035 for me, because I know we don't have fluff. I mean, what are we going to cut out that's not something a large portion of the population is going to freak out over? I don't even know what we could do reasonably. It's almost more symbolic for me, because like we're headed in that direction, and it's going to get way easier in 13 years. So
Yeah, none of us will probably be here then.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. 13 years is a long time for me.
I don't know. It sounds like pretty obtainable.
I might make it to
For you
that.
young guys.
I might be here.
we want to be learning it. So crazy people are here. They don't have a big pile of money to spend.
Yeah. Okay.
I probably won't
And,
be
and the
living in
hard
that.
part, Justin, is communicating that. And the other difficult thing is if we see these spike. I don't know if I've ever seen a spike in assessed value, and weathering that storm is really tough. And it'll take all of us to communicate that message, whatever's decided on what we can do.
You saw those in the early 80s, but there hasn't been anything since then.
Yeah.
It's been pretty stable since then. But yeah,
I've been playing with different graphs to show you guys with Ty, and I did one on just and it's hard because I went back till 1997 and saw Bel Aire's growth. But it's very hard because new construction really messes with that. But of course in the recession, it was 1% growth, and those it's just so scary because a lot of times it's 4 or 5, and then some you'll get 15 because we had a good year of development, and then it just dropped off the end. And I'm not saying we're predicting that, but it does for cities as a whole. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 10 years, 20 years? So I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight on that.
Okay. Any more questions for Ted on budget? He's going to come back next month and hit us hard and heavy.
I'll finish with, so June, we'll probably do general fund budget and really get into all those. July, we'll incorporate our utilities as well as finish up kind of finalizing general fund budget, get our utilities set. And then in August, it'll really just be a question and answer. Let's finalize everything and publish. And then we'll adopt it in the September meeting. And then we'll change everything in October probably. but that's one of those things we'll keep an eye on too as we continue to grow.
All right. Thank you. Any other issues we need to discuss tonight? Hearing none, I think we'll just call it an evening. Thank you, everyone. We will see you next Tuesday.